Stand up, Mike.
We got it.
My pleasure to introduce Peter. Peter Hrastovec was born in Windsor, where he built his career and raised his family. He described himself as a proud Canadian and son of immigrants, a published poet and performing artist in local theater. Peter is also a practicing lawyer who has great experience as a sessional instructor at the University of Windsor's Faculty of Law and as an adjunct professor of law at the University of Detroit Mercy. Peter is past president and a continuing member of the Rotary Club of Windsor in 1918. He's also served on past president advisory committees with the Windsor Symphony Orchestra and the University of Windsor's Alumni Association. He has worked with the Windsor Regional Cancer Center as chair of the Dreamweaver campaign, is past chair of the Windsor District Chamber of Commerce, and has assisted in the United Way with fundraising and sat on various boards and committees for the Art Council of Windsor and region, the Capitol Theater, Literary Arts Windsor, and the Advocate Society. You may also know that Peter was chair of the Great Canadian Flag Project at TF, and I did not know that. For his extensive work with the community organizations, Peter has received Lifetime Achievement Award from the Windsor Essex Regional Chamber of Commerce, was a co-honoree with his spouse Denise at the Jewish National Fund Negev dinner, and received the Law Society Medal from the Law Society of Upper Canada. Peter's poems have appeared in 3 solo volumes of work, In Lieu of Flowers, Sidelines, and There Will Be Fish, all published by Black Moss Press. His work about the city of Windsor and surrounding region has also appeared in an anthology, Because We All Have Lived Here, and in the Middle Space, Windsor's Public Art. As poet laureate, Peter looks forward to reaching out to new and seasoned writers, inviting them to celebrate the city with their words and actions. He is focused on connecting poets, writers, storytellers with musicians, visual artists, and theater groups to create new synergies that will help continue to tell Windsor's stories. Please join me in welcoming Peter.
Thank you very much, Monique, and really appreciate your kind words. And good to see everybody, fellow Rotarians and friends, guests. Happy Poetry Month, happy Easter, happy Passover, and what am I missing? Oh, happy opening day, of course, for the Tigers, something that's close to my heart, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Someone talked about a tough month, being April. T.S. Eliot, the great poet, said April is the cruelest month. And I used to always remind my wife of that when she was a working accountant. And Denise is happily retired now. And as was mentioned, she's joining our club and she'll be inducted sometime this month. She's looking forward to it. She came back from Guatemala on her first. I spent 30 years in Rotary, never went on a Rotary excursion anywhere. She goes to Guatemala. She's not even a Rotarian yet, but she's got the bug, and I'm really excited about that. She's really interested in diversity projects. So what to talk about today? There's all kinds of things that we can talk about. And I'm going to read a few selections of my poems for you today. And I'm going to take you on a little journey that I took a few years ago to my parents' native Croatia. I'm a Canadian of Croatian descent, very proud. It's always nice to go back to some place where you think, you've got some connection, you got some roots, and then when you get there, you actually sense it, and you feel it. There's spirits that walk this earth. And we went on this little boat cruise with a number of people. Alan's good friend is my nephew Mike Furnett, and his family. We went on this incredible trip. And one of the places we stopped at was a little town called Milna on an island in Croatia. And these are just some of my thoughts traveling, walking above the town early in the morning. So it's called Waking in Milna. So just think about this as a little journey back, a little travel on. Morning is sardines by the bag, fishing boat fresh. The catch carried to kitchens by generations of women, releasing them for a final swim in the oil of a heated frying pan. At the Wharf Cafe, the coffee pours hot with cold beer chasers. True, cold beer chasers. Dispirited old men in their undershirts, pulling up chairs to debate politics and football, dissecting last night's match and recent elections, grumbling over poor officiating on the soccer pitch and in the parliament. And the bakeries do nothing to suppress seductive aromas seeping from ancient ovens, enticing the shoppers with widening wallets and open shopping bags. The warm loaves faded for butter and jam, a staple, delectable, perfect. The nuns in formation flock to the little chapel, overflowing with tourists who will abandon the pews when the service begins. Room enough for the holy and their call to prayer. We are docked, refueling our thirsty boat while the earth continues its whirl, remembering only now that it is Sunday and that rituals run as deep as the sea or your sapphire eyes. So that's meal time. One of the pleasures we have in our community is your very own Irene Moore Davis. There she is, and all the work that she does, in terms of history, and especially for Black History Month. I showed her a sign that I saw in Colorado in a bookstore that says every month is Black History Month, and that's so true. And Irene is very gracious and good in terms of reminding us of that and discovering new things for us. I had the pleasure, I want to read this poem that's in my book. I had the pleasure of going to Memphis. And this week, we celebrated the tragic anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King, as you recall, back in 1968. And I had the pleasure and the honor and privilege of going to Memphis, standing before the Laureate Hotel in the rain, which was not a big deal. It was worth it to me to stand there and be mindful of what happened. I was 11 years old when that happened, and it still stuns me in terms of what happened. And I remember how angered and vilified my parents were, especially my father, who was a real news hound, and said this is a ridiculous thing that happened, such a tragedy of a man who has done so much for humanity. And so I thought it'd be fitting to read that poem today, a little more sobering than some of the other stuff that I'm going to read. And in my experience there, well, I'll talk about it later, but experience of just being there was very moving. So I wrote this poem called "Visiting the Lorraine Motel." Visiting the Lorraine Motel. I stood where the clock was broken below the lurid Memphis moon, where a window was cracked open, just enough to change the journey, just enough to silence history. I stand where the sermon ended, above the screams of disbelief, where bleeding day becomes blood-soaked night, just enough to color thinking, just enough to darken hearts. I am standing where the preacher stood in the shadow of the massive mountain, where once he voiced a solemn promise, just enough for us to hear, just enough to overcome. I see where they stood, grainy TV people pointing to a window left wide open, just enough to let slip, just enough of the dream in progress. God bless Dr. King. Yes. Irene was kind enough to allude the fact that tonight the public practicum students at the publishing practicum students at the University of Windsor, the Marty Gervais class, they're releasing a new book, and it's about public art and all the things that you see. You walk down the riverfront, especially past the Gardens there, the beautiful statuary, and there's stuff all over this great community. And a lot of it, we're thankful to the Odettes, and their kind gift to the city. And so a number of writers were asked to write about this. Irene's one of them. She's got a beautiful poem in there about the corridor and the new mosaic downtown. And I wrote a number of pieces, but this is a piece that I wrote about something that I think you all know, and that's the the Tecumseh and Brock sculpture in Sandwich Town. I was asked to do this. So I wrote, I thought about, the statuary there, and I thought about those two great historical figures. I thought about a dialogue they might have. So I wrote this poem. It's called Destiny, after Tecumseh and Brock, a sculpture by Mark Williams. A warrior on horseback rides past a uniformed officer. The soldier is on guard, an earnest sentinel, saber at his side, bicorn hat on his head, standing with a spyglass extended in his hands. He surveys intently something far, far on the distant horizon. The horseman, resplendent in tribal dress, rifle in hand, girded for battle, asks, "What do you see, my friend?" Undistracted, fixed on his subject, the officer, poised and ready, responds, "Future." The rider listens and looks inland, sitting proudly upon his noble mount, the feather on his cap curved blade-like, his hair blowing freely with the wind, masking his stern, resolute eyes. He advances past his ally, who guards his position, steadfast in his gaze. On hearing the horse's hooves as it passes by, the officer asks, and you, my friend, where are you going?" Sitting tall, committed, knowing and wise, this leader, this valiant warrior chief, the pride of the Shawnee people, replies, "Into history." So let's have a little bit of fun. So it is opening day. I'm a big fan of this guy here, Willie Horton. He was my hero, is my hero. He's still with us, and a great, we heard about him saving lives and so on, a great community leader. He's done a tremendous, a lot of tremendous things, for the youth in Detroit, and he's still a constant, fixture over at Comerica Park. We played, of course, good old Tiger Stadium. And as a kid, my parents, as a Canadian Croatian descent, you can imagine, immigrant parents. My parents were all about books and art, and I thank them for that, because that's part of who I am today. But sports wasn't on their radar screen, and I had to sort of learn to play pickup baseball. And I always envisioned how it would be great to be dressed in a uniform from top to bottom. I'm wearing jeans today, but this is the closest I've ever gotten to a full baseball regalia. But I used to play it twice a day, love the game, and got myself to a baseball game by being a patrol boy. And back in those days, if you work, in your schools and you got to go to a baseball game as a result of being, working with the patrol team, that was the payoff at the end of the year. So I got to go see Willie Horton against the old Washington Senators, Frank Howard, who led the league in home runs. He had 42 that year, but Willie had 36. And this is about what I witnessed Willie do, in about the seventh inning of the game, that I sat in the bleachers, as far away as you can probably be at a baseball game. But to me, it was all magic. And Frank hit a home run in the third inning, but Willie did something really special later on. And I'm going to write, and this is what the poem is called. I once saw Willie Horton. I once saw Willie Horton hit a grand slam on a warm Saturday afternoon, the air heavy with the smell of hot dogs and spilled beer. I kept Willie Horton in my hip pocket, his face, his arms, his bat, a dog-eared and tattered baseball card worth one Harmon Killebrew, a Frank Howard, and 2 pop bottles. Crammed him into a pair of old blue jeans, torn at the knees from trying to slide into second base just like him. I knew Willie Horton was big and strong, though he stood that afternoon tiny in the shadows of the grandstand over 400 feet away across a jade sea of grass. I could see Willie Horton from the bleachers, the cheap seats, where we sat sun-baked and anxious, so very far away you would think we were in a distant country. I saw Willie Horton in the on-deck circle beside home plate, swinging at phantom pitches, waiting his turn to declare the strike zone as his own. I knew it was Willie Horton by the way he handled his bat, by the way he waited his turn, the way he played the game, played for the love of the game, played to love and be loved, played because his love of baseball was a thing we shared, all who watched from every seat, or all who heard on every radio on an afternoon that was made for myth and magic. I saw Willie Horton take his place at the plate with the bases loaded, a smile for the catcher, a nod to the umpire, and plain old grit for the pitcher. I saw Willie Horton beam when the crowd began to chant, "Hit the ball, Willie! Hit the ball, Willie! Hit the ball!" I saw Willie Horton's bat connect with the first pitch, sending the ball screaming, ascended rocket-like into the heavens, taking its place with the constellations, defying physics, then descending like a space capsule, hurtling through the atmosphere, a vicious flame streak that tore through the clouds like a storm in summer, a perfect arc that would have been the envy of ancient mathematicians, the ball crashing into the bleachers, a defiant knock on wooden benches, a hard door slam, a hammer hitting lumber, bouncing firm and bounding high and dropping with precision into the hands of the luckiest person I had ever seen, a wide-eyed kid who could hardly wipe the smile from his face, stuck there, I expect, for the rest of the day and maybe into the next, or forever. And I thought, does it ever get any better than this? Well, of course it did. Later with my own kids, on summer afternoons with adventures that remained to be written. But it all started when I saw Willie Horton run for home. A year to the day, he stood on a car with his city burning, declaring to those who dared to rebel to go home and be safe, just like him running home, to be safe at home in a kingdom at Michigan and Trumbull, where the bleachers on any warm afternoon was the very place where rainbows and legends begin. This is a poem I'm going to read to you about a little bit about the history of the city and about the art gallery. When I was a little gaffer, I was never really that little, but about nine or 10 years old, we went to Williston Manor, because that's where the art gallery of Windsor used to be. Yeah, and that was my first experience with public art. And we talked about the fact that there's this new book about public art. I'd written this poem about my experience of seeing a famous painting by Emily Carr, and you've all seen it at the art gallery, and the Jan Mortuary Poles painting, which was hanging in the stairwell when you go up to the second floor, you know, where the gallery used to be, you know, at Williston Manor. And I'm looking at this painting, and I remember the teacher saying, "Peter, stop dawdling," and she said that a lot to me. And but I was just frozen looking at this painting. And when you see it, you'll know what I mean. It's absolutely exquisite. And this is about how the painting has made its way around the community, because the art gallery has been in various locations for a lot of good reasons. And so this is my homage to the art gallery and to Emily Carr. It's called Emily Carr Hangs in the Gallery, Jan Mortuary Poles, 1928, 1929. When I first saw her, child-eyed and gullible, Emily Carr hung in a stairwell in a gallery that once was a mansion built by whiskey in a town turned city. She moved with the gallery to a building that once was a brewery that wasn't built by whiskey and was widely popular, the brewery, not the gallery, in a city that remained a city. With a roll of the dice comes a casino, and poor Emily is shipped across town to a shopping mall in the middle of the city, where she becomes hugely popular, not so much as the brewery. And shoppers turned art buffs mill about with bundles and bags, talk post-impressionism and a 30% discount on shoes. The gallery hits the jackpot, moves upstream to sacred land. Remember the brewery turned casino? Vacant and demolished, and the glass and steel totem rises from the hallowed earth to house the art where Emily endures. I see her again. I see her again with aging eyes revived. So there you go. That's just a couple more. I'm going to introduce this poem. This takes us back to Croatia again. And we're going to visit my mother's home village. And this being Easter was very sacred to my mom. She was very God-fearing, and she always kept a beautiful table at Easter for her family. And this is, if you ever have a chance to go to Croatia, there's a little town called Primošten, and it's on the Adriatic, and it's a slice of heaven. And tourism has really, changed it, too dramatically. It still has a great sort of a historical context. It's beautiful in its own way. And there's a beautiful church that sits at the top where the cemetery is, where a lot of the Hulievs are. That's my mother's, family. And there's tons of them there. In fact, when I first went there, as an adult, my family, I checked into a hotel nearby there, and I said, "The guy started saying, are you from here?" And I said, "Well, my mother was." And this guy in Croatia, and I said she was a Williams. Ah, he says they're everywhere. He says they spread like disease. Welcome to welcome home. She would have loved that. She was gone by then, but she would have loved that. So the church stands at the top, and this is a homage to that and to what I see and what I experience. It's called Adriatic Mountains. In my mother's village, the church stands at the top of the hill, its whitewashed walls stripped shamelessly by the indelicate touch of briny winds, while the modest windows wrench themselves free from casements cracked with age. The old gray clock, numbed into stubborn silence, wears an embarrassed grin and stares blindly out to sea. The small Gothic steeple, the triumph of some deceased generation, points an indignant finger at the innocent morning breaking in blue. Far, far below, beneath this ancient peace, an army of old women parading in their best black undertake their private pilgrimages and collect like dust under the foot of this bloodless Calvary, brandishing prayers unsheathed in strategic anticipation of one united assault on God. Rumor has it he's resting. And the last poem I'm going to read to you, and a shameless marketing. I have some books for sale today, and they're discounted. But in addition to the discount, I am going to kick back from every book purchased $5 back to your club, because it's all about it's wonderful to get your work out there in the hands of people. And I always tell people, for yourself, I tell people when I'm introducing other authors, and do that quite a bit. I said, buy their book and bring it as a social host gift. Instead of a bottle of wine, you can bring a bottle of wine too if you want. The bottle of wine is going to be consumed, but the book might change hands a number of times and perhaps bring pleasure to some people. So I'm prepared to sell some books to you today for that specific purpose, and again to honor your club. And again, I'm very honored and privileged to be here today, and thank you for this great opportunity in this wonderful poetry month that is April. I'm going to leave you with this last poem, and it is a poem that I wrote about Denise, because it's going to be 50 years in 2 weeks that we had our first date, and this is about that. This is about that first date. And if she was here, she'd be blushing and admonishing me afterwards, but it's okay, it's not her. But she thought I might read this poem. But it's about our first date, and when I tried to kiss her goodnight, we're in high school, and I was not good at it. And like everything you have to, it's practice. Practice, exactly. So this poem is called First Kiss Fail. Well-intentioned and designed to impress, our first kiss was an unmitigated disaster. A parachute drop that missed the mark, the game-winning shot that rimmed out, one number shy of a lottery jackpot. Reading my humiliation like a favorite poem. You rescued the moment, suggesting a second chance, a lifeline to a struggling soul, redemption. Your gentle lips and this reminder, if at first you don't succeed, get it right, for what may follow is a game changer. Thank you very much.